Trustees meeting hereby called to order. Our first item of business is public comment. Members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Library Board. Do I have any public comment in the room? Welcome.
Yes, thank you. My name is Lisa Taylor. I work with UNR Cooperative Extension. And of course, we've been a part of your strategic planning process for over, I think we did it back in 2019, but I certainly was very interested in coming today and participating. Also, I do have for submission my survey that had been sent to me as in preparation for this. So I just want to thank you for opening this opportunity to all of us in our community. And certainly we're very excited to be supportive as we can for the process.
Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor.
Do I give this to, who would be the?
Ermal or Joy, can you take,
Okay.
it's our survey, so
Wonderful. Thank
whoever's
you so much.
compiling those, thank you so much. Do I have any other members of the public who would like to come forward with public comment at this time?
Hi, this is Joy Holt. I am actually submitting a return survey as well on behalf of Tammy Westergaard, who is the project coordinator for the Sandy Grant. And she just asked that I let y'all know and hand it off so it can be part of the record.
Terrific, thank you very much.
We do have one caller on the line.
All right, let's move to public comment on the phone. Anybody on the phone who would like to make a public comment at this time, please make it known.
Caller, when you hear the two beeps, it'll be your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record.
Nikki Peterson.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, hi, this is Nikki Peterson. I'm with Excel over at WNC, and we were invited to this, and I am stepping in as a representative to see how we can support your strategic plan.
Nikki, thank you so much for joining us. We'll look forward to your participation. Do we have any other public comment?
There are no other callers on the line at this time.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item for possible action approval of minutes of previous meetings. So our previous meeting for 7/22 draft minutes should be in front of you. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review. If anyone has edits, make those known. If not, I will accept a motion to approve these minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from our last meeting, July 22nd, as written.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. We'll move on to our next agenda item for possible action, and I hope this is the majority of our meeting time today. It's our Library Board Carson City Strategic Plan Annual Update Presentation and Review of the Strategic Planning Process, including goals and objectives of strategic planning and solicitation of input from library trustees and stakeholders to inform the annual refresh of the library strategic plan. I turn it over to Dr. Fred Steinman from UNR.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members
Welcome.
of the board. For the record, my name is Fred Steinman. I'm an assistant research professor in the College of Business at the University of Nevada, Reno. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and have an opportunity to work with each of you, as well as gather additional input on this strategic planning update process from members of the public. I have a very, very short presentation and then just really a single question for each of the members of the board and members of the public gathered here today to participate in. Can you jump to the next slide?
I do just have a quick technical question. We do have a participant on the phone. Are they able to hear you? No. All right, no voice in the sky. We're not sure. I suppose we can proceed unless that's going to cause an issue for us, open meeting wise.
You can proceed, yes.
All right, thanks so much. I hope Nikki can hear us.
I'll try to talk loud, so hopefully one of the mic. Oh,
Get a microphone to be heard.
well, that'll work. Thank you very much. Again, for the record, just in case, Fred Steinman, Assistant Research Professor in the College of Business at the University of Nevada, Reno. I really kind of, anytime I engage in a strategic planning process, I always like to kind of show this slide, primarily just to get everyone who's participating in a strategic planning process in the general mindset of what we try to do either in the development of a new strategic plan or what we're doing tonight, which is really the continual update, evaluation, and review of where an organization is in terms of implementation of that strategic plan. Ultimately, any strategic planning process, again, be it the development of a new one or the updating, revising of an existing one, is really an opportunity for an organization to step back and look at where the organization is currently and then strategically think about what the organization wants to achieve in the remainder of a strategic planning horizon, or in this case, the next coming year. This annual update and evaluation is really kind of a 2-year annual update and evaluation. We had hoped, as part of the contract between the Carson City Library and the College of Business from back in May of 2019, to have done one of these annual updates in 2020. Obviously, with COVID the way it was in the middle to early part of 2020, it really wasn't feasible to have any type of large in-person meetings to do this. And then, of course, as we waited, we got into the winter months, and it wasn't available at that point. So here we are, really kind of in the summer, late summer period, trying to complete this annual update and evaluation. You have a number of documents in your packets. One is a comprehensive summary of a community-wide survey that I facilitated on behalf of the Carson City Library. Really, again, that survey was used back in 2019 to really help develop the initial strategic planning document, which you also have in your packet. We had an opportunity on August 13th to meet here, myself and senior administration management of the library, to work our way through the results of that packet, as well as, again, identify kind of where the organization is in implementation and achievement of stated goals and objectives that were developed back in 2019, and then begin the process of really outlining what the library will want to accomplish relative to the survey results, relative to those existing goals and objectives, and of course, relative to what the organization has had to deal with over the last 15 or so months for the coming year as well. So next slide. Really, again, this is just an opportunity for you, members of the board, members of the public gathered here, to help us answer this question. What do you feel from your specific vantage points are kind of the main priority issues, big ticket items that either you would like to see the library focus on over the next year, or what do you feel are kind of the major challenges and issues that the library as an organization should be focused on and addressing over the next year as well? I'll just kick it open to you, and you can throw your ideas at me.
First of all, thank you. We certainly appreciate that, Dr. Steinman. Just as a little refresh in terms of planning to my fellow board members, this is a significant part of our jobs as board trustees, to determine the direction of the library by studying community needs, and to see that a plan is developed for meeting those needs, that the plan is carried out. That's on us. So I certainly look forward to hearing every single one of you come up with lots of great input, and volunteers first, of course, before I take over. Anyone?
Okay, this is Beth Smarkle. I think that from reading the results of the survey, I think space for meetings and for community groups, and particularly space that might be accessed outside of the library. There were quite a few responses that talked about the need for reading space, for public meeting public meeting space for programming. I know in the past year and a half, there hasn't been much programming, in-person programming. I think I think people want that.
Sarah Nichols for the record. I'm a little, I guess, I don't want to say stunned. I'm surprised that I'm looking at, it says 2019, so maybe things have changed, but it said 2019% of totals, like who uses the library the most. I really would have thought it would have been family and kids. And I know, we really talk about what we're going to do for the kids. But I'm surprised it's actually older people who seem to utilize the library. So I don't want to leave them out when we talk about programming or, what can we do? Because, I mean, this is huge. You've got 16% or 60 to 64, whereas 19 is 2%. 19 and under is 2%. Again, that really surprises me.
I think part of it may be I think that this is the demographics of the respondents as well. So it could very well be that a larger percentage of the respondents fall into those groups, and maybe it's not completely representative of our percentage.
And that would be good to know, too. If the next time we do a survey, if we could say, how many people in your family use the library and what are their ages, maybe, so that we could really capture how many people are using the library and what they're doing.
Is any of that information available in another way, not through survey responses, but perhaps through card usage or? I'm looking at Ermel.
Ermel Reinhardt, Access Services Manager for the record. So we don't keep age, but we do keep birthday, so that can be determined.
Okay.
And just speaking from, what I see, it does tend to be older users rather than young children at the library.
Okay, so.
This is Beth Markle. I think that based on some of my experience, there's a lot of younger families with kids. They'll come to Story Hour. They will participate in the traditional children's activities, whereas older people are probably not as, they're not going to come to a weekly Story Hour, but they might come to a program about photography, or a program about art, or sort of more broad-based, high-interest programs, and they may come on a sporadic basis. I know, like, my husband is at a program tonight with the Nevada State Museum on music from the 20s. It's, and keeping some kind of track in some way of the older people who come to participate in things, not just borrow books, but come to participate in things, does make some sense. Because the children are going to come anyway.
I agree, and I remember years ago, and don't ask me how many years ago, so let's say over 10. So it's probably, maybe about 10, maybe a little less than 10. The library did have programming for adults, so they would have guest lecturers come, and they would have authors come. And you're right, I mean, it would be great to have, like, I just bought a little cricket. I don't know if you guys know what a cricket is. Have someone demonstrate use.
Tell us about a cricket.
Huh?
What is a cricket?
Okay, so, oh my God. So, I'm
Awesomeness.
surprised we probably have something like it. Joey, do we have something like it? Because it's called a die cut machine. Do we have something like that? I thought we did.
Like in the
Ish,
makerspace,
ish.
is this like a CNC?
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, so what Cricut does, it makes really cool. It's for DUIers, but you can
And
do everything.
teachers.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, labels. I mean,
Scrapbookers.
labels.
Yeah.
You can make really cool decals and put them on cups. Specialized cups, and people use it to make T-shirts if they're all going to Disneyland. So they do the Anderson Family Disneyland 2020. That kind of thing. And anyway, it is kind of fun, but it would be something probably would be of interest, that, you know, that kind of programming. So I'm just throwing it out there, the different kind of programming. But I do know that the library, again, years ago, had almost like a,
makerspace, right? Maybe
Yeah.
piggybacking on what's existing and building out.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's just a matter of awareness. If that capacity already exists and folks don't know that it's there, which would be part of my suspicion. I know that I think every machine that's in the makerspace you can go through and take classes and get a certificate, learn how to use it, and use it for your own personal whatever you're making, your family vacation, whatever you're making.
Exactly.
But it is a matter of just maybe raising awareness.
Definitely. Oh, I definitely think we need
communication
to
component there. I think.
to raise awareness, because yeah, a lot of people I talk to don't know anything about the makerspace.
Maybe as a follow-up question to each of the things that have already been touched upon, maybe thinking about the last 15 to 16 months, you know, hopefully there's an end to the pandemic and the ongoing impacts. Kind of thinking about a post-pandemic world for the Carson City Library. Are there specific areas, things? You know, we've talked about awareness, we've talked about, you know, targeting program services, resources to target populations. Just thinking about emerging from the last 15 to 16 months, are there areas as the board or maybe members of the public would like the library to focus on as we continue to implement the strategic plan?
I think that we, back to awareness, I think that we've fallen off the radar because we've been closed. And so people maybe have lost the knowledge that they may have had about some of our in-person services. And so I think we might need to market or advertise or really get back on top of bringing that back to awareness. Yeah, and it almost kind of looks like, I mean, I know that we have tried to communicate like what hours we're open as we've been in stages of reopening and whatnot, but I saw comments in here. It sounds like there's a lot of people that just don't have that information. Maybe trying to think of other ways to get that out, but I think we need to get back in the public view and refresh everybody's knowledge about what is there, because everybody's been kind of hibernating.
Great point.
Well, and also I think we need to go back to space. I mean, space was mentioned many times. The organization of the space. I know that the refresh wasn't that long ago, but I was kind of struck by, you know, some people who think it's a really small library. Well, it is a really small library for the community, and it's not very, it's hard to carve out these spaces. If you want to have a movie night for adults, and or you know, or, I mean not adult movies, but you know.
Oh heavens!
And
Come on.
yeah, and you want to have 50 people. It would be a challenge to have a comfortable space for 50 people to show a movie in that library.
Yeah, looking here in the comments, not a great hangout space. I like libraries that are more inviting.
Yeah.
And have cozy hangout spots for reading or research. And that kind of goes again to maybe just spending a little more time talking about, okay, there's space, but it's perhaps maybe how things are organized. I know I absolutely need to touch on being a resource for community members who are struggling, whether that is people who are insecure in terms of housing, or food insecure, people who would like to either get on their feet, get back to work, or move from a minimum wage work environment to something where perhaps a vocational certificate is required, but those are usually short term. If they can find a place to come and study and advance that way, I think that would be a priority for me. I'll say that for me. I won't say for the whole board, but addressing those not only basic needs, but also those stepping
stones out of worrying about your basic needs.
You know, one thing that we could do that wouldn't cost us anything, just some time, so I would ask the board members to volunteer, is the food bank. The Northern Nevada Food Bank does what they call mobile harvests. And it's really easy to partner with them, and they come out with the food, and they set everything up. Basically, just need some help putting the boxes in people's cars. And I've done it. It's really fun. It's really rewarding, but it's one way to show that the library is really connecting with. Because at the same time, as you have that, you could also have maybe people there like, again, I'm going back, sorry, I've been a library user for almost 20 years. There used to be, I think it was monthly, maybe something like it, a pro bono lawyer that used to come in and help people in the library, which was kind of weird sometimes because you're looking at a book and you hear these people having a conversation, but having somebody like that out, or you have somebody from Dieter coming out and saying, here's where you can go to, if you're looking for a job or if you need to sign up for SNAP or whatever. But it would be a great way to say, we're here for you. We're more than just a place for you to come get a book. And that might be a really good start.
So inviting in these other community resources is
Yeah.
kind of big. I see the library as like this very nice hub, like the location, what business happens at the library. You walk into a library and you feel good. I work at welfare, and sometimes when you're the client walking into welfare, it's not the best feeling walking into a welfare office, certainly not compared to walking into a library.
Right.
So the other piece I also wanted to mention is connectivity with our school district partners and also our partners at Western Nevada College, not only on the academic track, but for community education, adult literacy. And I don't want to take up too much time on that, but I did want to ask District Attorney Woodbury if it's all right for me to open an additional public comment period right now for this discussion.
Chair Balderson, you do have that discretion. We're required to have a minimum of 2 public comment periods, but if the chair thinks it would be useful to invite the public to provide some input, that's permissible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I do think it's a good idea. So members of the public, if you have additional input you'd like to share with us, please come forward. We want to hear from you. Anyone in the room? Come on up.
Hello, I'm Lisa Taylor. I work at the Cooperative Extension Service. But in my past life, I actually lived in Aurora, Colorado, where I was a library worker, and we did start out in a very small location, and ultimately we built Smoky Hill Public Library. And it was an amazing opportunity that truly, I think, changed, or I guess I'd say really enhanced everyone's usage, enthusiasm, and excitement for not only what's possible, but certainly as it relates to having so many more people take advantage of that possibility. And I think the saddest part I find is what an amazing place we have with our current library, but that I don't always think that all people come to it with the same types of enthusiasm. And I do think that, at least for the place where I was at, which was in Centennial, Colorado, which was a growing part of the United States. And as we think about it, this is still a very growing and I think continuing to grow place in Nevada. And so I just bring that wish to our community, although I understand that there's been significant history and significant issues. I just wish that wouldn't have to stop us from continuing to explore that possibility.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Do I have anyone else in the room who would like to come? Sir, please.
This is Nikki Peterson. Can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead, Nikki, and then we'll come to you.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, I was just listening to you talk about the adult literacy section of that segment, and that's something that we work on here. We focus on helping our members of our community get their high school equivalency, but also we partner with the career and technical education side to help develop the workforce as well. So I think this might be an area where we could probably meet later and figure out how to work within your strategic plan to get that going as well.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Anne.
Good evening. My name is Ron Belbin. I am the director of the library at Western Nevada College. I'm pleased to be here with you guys. This is my first opportunity to meet with you. Thank you for having me. Yes, and following up on what Nikki was saying, the library at WNC is already in partnership with the Carson City Library through the Sandy Grant, and we're going to be working very closely in that respect. And I think that one of the things that we in the library world try to do is cover as much area and as much stuff as we can to provide as broad a range of services and meet as many needs as we possibly can. And eventually that leads to kind of a breakdown and a bit of a watering down of the services that we eventually are able to offer. So I would strongly encourage you to make it a priority to think about partnerships that are out there that are already providing services that you can draw on and perhaps set up that hub idea to meet the needs of your many patrons rather than trying to specifically provide that service yourself. We at Western Nevada College would love to spend more time working very closely with you to meet as many of the needs that we can, particularly when we're talking about that education part. So partnering with Western Nevada College is something that we would look forward to and we'd love to engage in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belbin. Do we have anyone else in the room who would like to come forward for public comment this time? Okay, well, do I have any more thoughts that might have sparked among the board members?
Are we still on that question where we want to go? I think that also, we're, from my knowledge of the people in the room, the technology is part of our daily lives. However, it can be complicated. And I haven't come up with a solution to make it really easy for people. I don't have that understanding yet, but I know that there needs to be a way to make that technology easier. I mean, when I read comments like it was too complicated to get onto Overdrive, well, it's really not that complicated. But if you've never done it, or if you don't have experience using technology on a regular daily basis, it can seem complicated. I know I had to do something with the IRS website earlier this week, and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, what we used to fill out 10 pages of paper, you used to fill out these forms, and you'd have to give all this information and whatever. Now you have to do 25 pages, web pages. It's 10 pages of paper, now it's 25 web pages. And it's like, I don't know how people get through this stuff sometimes. And sometimes it does seem complicated to get through the library's website. However, it is nicely designed. But I think people will continue to need more and more assistance, guidance, teaching on technology, because it is clearly an integral part of our lives. And we need to make sure that people can use it effectively, because it's powerful and it can be used effectively for work, for recreation, for socialization, for education, It's just really important that the technology keep up and stay with the community and the step above, to innovate, to introduce. I mean, I was surprised that not everyone knew what a cricket was. Well, that's sort of it's not a fancy technology, but it definitely is a technology that a lot of people could take advantage of. And, there's a lot of stuff out there that the library could continue to be sort of a conduit to the technology.
Well, I'm hearing, though, too, as you're speaking, really an emphasis on the user experience, not so much technical requirements. And I think that can be a moving target. So in terms of infrastructure and resources, which in my view, our number one resources are staff. So really enabling staff and empowering staff to be as flexible as possible, and to take ownership and have that level of expertise to say, hey, I can walk you through that, no problem, and to also have the time and leeway and resources to step away from whatever they were just doing to
Right.
be able to
Right.
say, hey, that's going to take a few extra minutes, but I can help you out.
Yeah.
Can I just tell you a quick story about that?
Yes, please.
So I'm one of the dorks that got overdrive and went, I have no idea what I'm doing. Why is this? I mean, I have a Mac. I know how to use things. And I was in the library one day, and I did mention to one of the staff that she's like, do you utilize online? I said, I cannot figure out overdrive. And not only did she take the time out, she said, if you bring your device here, I will help you, because there is a trick to get from here to there, because I was having a hard time. Once I logged on to the library, I wasn't sure where to go from there. But I thought that was really sweet that she said, next time you come in, just bring your device, whether it's a Kindle, is it your phone, whatever, it is, and we'll show you how to do that. And so I did. I was quite, and we spent a couple minutes, because you're right. I mean, sometimes, it can be a little challenging. It took her 5 minutes, and I use it all the time now.
Yeah, and
I find Libby a lot easier, but I still use overdrive.
it's hard. It's even hard for library staff to know all the technology. I mean, I have an opposite story. I couldn't figure out how to get an audiobook, and I took it in, and I had an iPhone, and the person had never used an iPhone, and couldn't help me at all. But so it's challenging to get all the staff to be able to do that too. And I know, as part of that, this may be a little outside it's really not outside what we're talking about, but the people in the library, a lot of times they're at the circulation desk, so they're behind a desk. Upstairs, if you go upstairs to where the computers are, there's a helper there who's behind a desk. And sometimes that's scary to people, that those people they're behind the desk. And I don't know, you can have roving people. I know that staff, it's difficult to have enough staff to do some of this stuff. But have an open desk where it's, kind of like a reference desk used to be, but more softer. not a desk like this. So the people, because some people say they don't feel comfortable coming in the library. Are there furniture, the way we can move around things to make the space feel more inviting?
Maybe one of the things that we should talk about is, as we do go forward and we get new technology or something, that we make sure that our staff is trained on it. Maybe somebody doesn't have an iPhone, doesn't mean maybe their coworkers do, right? I mean, this is behind the scenes things where we do training on an Android and on an iPhone and on, and a tablet. So when somebody does have an issue with an audio, doesn't matter if they have an iPhone or not, the staff does. They've been trained on how to do that.
And I'm sure that technology training is a continuing challenge.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
I know how to use this, and this because I use them every day, but I can use this because I only use it occasionally. But you know, I've been exposed to this, but I wouldn't want to tell you how to use it.
That comfort level, yeah,
Yeah.
that's big.
Anything else for the Carson City Little Library to focus on as we move into this third year of implementation of the strategic plan? Or does this just about cover it?
I would probably just talk a little bit more about, I mentioned human needs as a foundation, right? And then that bridges to, like we were talking about with a hub for services, inviting in more folks. I would appreciate that emphasis also on families. I think that was a great point you brought up. And there's possibility there too, and we might not be thinking about it in quite the same way, but with childcare licensing, they license facilities for childcare, right? But they also have like this micro license, some other separate column that's for the care facilities that you see sometimes like in gyms, you know, where the parent is around, but they might be doing something differently. So I think maybe just interfacing and kind of knowing a little bit more about how those things work too would be beneficial. And as I'm reading this question again, contingency and resiliency issues, I think having a strong foundation with either emergency management or health and human services, crisis intervention, and not necessarily just so that staff can go, oh, okay, let me call somebody for you, you're clearly suicidal or whatever, but also to be able to pick up on that those less obvious cues, getting back to human needs again. But I know at one point staff had been trained on naloxone administration. That was a big deal. It's a counteracting drug for opioids, and it. Yeah. Right. So it works like an EpiPen, and yes. And those kinds of trainings, really, it's first aid, it's CPR. It's not that the staff is first responders by any means, but at a minimum, have a repertoire that's better than, I don't know, let me try to get someone on the phone. So that would that would be a priority for me. And then if I could get back just a little bit to flesh out when we were talking about communications, because I do think that a communications plan really is a separate but related portion of strategic planning, is however you're going to communicate your plan and carry it out. We really want to think about who do we want to reach. These are different audiences. And for each different audience, you might have a different message depending on what the resources you're trying to communicate about. And those messages have a different motive. It could be to increase knowledge, just, hey, we want you to know about this, or maybe it's we want to encourage a desired behavior about how to use the library. And so I want us to think just one more step, one more layer deeper when we're talking about communication, that this is going to be specialized communication to any number of different audiences that we have. And it's not just current patrons, it's people who have disengaged with the library and how to bring those folks back in. So that's my 2 cents on communication. I won't give you the whole spiel, but have any further discussion?
You know, we had that lovely billboard, not billboard, but, you know,
Banner.
That banner.
outside. The marquee, thank you.
Oh.
That's the big word I'm looking for.
Marquee.
Yeah, and so I think we could maybe utilize that more. You know, I drive by and it does catch your eye. And I think that would be a good place to start, because we always say, you know, the library hours are or closed. you know, I mean, we, you know, today, but it would be kind of, or, you know, or story time. I know we also put story time up there, so we do use it, but that would be a really good place also to start with different things.
And if you're inviting in a representative from Dieter or from wherever, say, hey, look, Dieter's here today, the mobile harvest is here today, or
Right.
wherever it is.
Right. Or, hey, have you ever used cricket? Come on in. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
You know, I mean, just, but
Julie,
just
come figure out what a
invite-
cricket is, yes.
I mean, you know, yeah, you know what? Have, you know, want to learn Excel? Do you want to get better at Excel? Come on in at 4 o'clock. You know, I mean, just make it, instead of just announcements there, because that, yes, that's communication, but come on in, invite people in. You know, as people start driving by them, it trains them to start looking up, well, what's going on at the library today? You know, what are they doing today? And Carson Now, because I know I've seen things about the library in Carson Now. Maybe get your social media person to do more articles, because I know you can do your own articles in Carson Now, right? And talk about the different things that's going on at the library. And your Twitter account and I have a great time. I mean, you know, whoever's doing that is a hell of a lot of fun. And and so, you know, that's another good way to communicate is with social media. Do it right. You know, do a because like I do it for the Nevada Indian Commission. Today was National Dog Day, so we got pictures of staff, you know, with their dogs and put that out and try to make it more human. I mean, there's different ways you can communicate. The library's here for you. We're fun. We're the place to be. We're hip. You know, we're Carson City Library.
Also, with contingency and resiliency issues, I think that, and it speaks to communication too, the library needs to not just invite people into the library in terms of partnerships, but the library needs to go out to various locations. You know, I know that the library has taken the pedal bike to the farmer's market. Hasn't been there recently, but I know it's been there in the past. What about taking it to McFadden Plaza a couple times? Or go to some, maybe even like Carson City Hall with that big lobby, and like a pop-up, I guess, is what I'm kind of getting at maybe. But, or go to the senior center and have a table, a display table that relates to what their interests might be. And because
Well, after school events or after school programming would be a good place too to just,
Say,
what if the
schools
bike
would be a
showed
great
up
place
at,
to go, hey, this is what we're doing at the
Latchkey or Safety,
library.
yeah.
well, I know the library has a presence at the Boys and Girls Club,
Yes.
right? Right. Right, right.
Can you turn your microphone on, please? Could you turn your microphone on, please? Of course.
Yes, we do have a presence at the Boys and Girls Club. We have a collection there.
Right.
And we strive really hard to keep that robust, new, and fresh for the kids. And I think we have a fairly good response from the tween age down. The teens are not as interested, I guess, is the very blunt way to put it. But that is certainly something that is on our radar to improve that our presence with that demographic, if that makes sense.
That's probably a good model. Whatever collection you have, especially if it's rotating, you can rotate through multiple school programs or what the rec department does or whatever, you know, so you kind of have the same batch being spread across, and that's about the same time of school and
Right.
same time of day. It might be logistically difficult, but I have faith.
Right.
Do
Well,
we
and I
have
just
anyone
think,
from-
I'm sorry,
Do we have anyone from Boys and Girls Club available tonight?
here tonight?
Yes.
No, we don't,
Okay.
that I know of.
And we
I'm
could-
not sure about, oh, sorry, Beth Lucas for the record. I'm not sure about the overlap with the other after-school programs because a lot of them, I believe, take place like in the gymnasiums at the elementary schools. So they're in borrowed space. They don't really have any space or area of their own, but also,
Which would
does
be
that
similar
overlap
to
with the school library already on the,
Right.
on site?
I don't know about
I,
that.
I don't know if there'd be
We need
any
to hear from
problems
the
with
school
materials
district.
coming home from both locations, or I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But, I mean, when my kids were in the after-school programs, they didn't have very much storage or any personal space.
Which is similar to how it would be like, you know, showing up at the farmer's market. You
Right.
don't have any space there either.
Right.
But
But as far as like a collection that was like kept there, that we
Mhm.
rotated through, I think that might be logistically challenging.
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be a good pop-up type.
Even, I mean, and I'm not talking so much about, you know, having a collection at different places, but having opportunities for awareness and connection and engagement. You know, you can, and I think that it's important to engage children, but it's really more important to engage adults because they are responsible for the children. And you need to be able to grow a commitment to the library from the time the kids are little until, you know, we're doing things after school programs or Boys and Girls Club. There's teen opportunities at the library, I know, but, you know, then we kind of lose them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think having some kind of programming that can be pop-up, can be engaging. You could do a cricket demonstration at McFadden Plaza.
And sign some people up for library
Yeah.
cards, right?
I'm trying to figure out why the card won't work.
Right.
So, if I may, Joy Holt for the record, I think what I'm hearing you say is outreach.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
really the takeaway, right? Is more outreach, concerted outreach, mindful outreach. And we may not, you know, I think that it's kind of with outreach, sometimes you just got to try lots of different
Yeah.
tactics to see what will work.
Yeah, and
And-
that comes under the contingency and resiliency because you have to be able to,
Move.
yeah.
Well, and I think too, in my experience, sometimes you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
If
and
it's
sometimes that can be
meaningful or not.
Yeah.
You
Right.
don't know until you've
right,
tried it and-
exactly.
yeah. I get that. And these are limited resources we're talking about, but at the same time, that's not a reason not to try, so.
Wait, do any of the librarians go out like to the schools, to the school library? Because I remember this happening when I was a kid. Went out to the school libraries, and the kids would go to the library. You know, kids were excited to be at the library, and all of a sudden you got this adult talking about even a bigger space and more books and Lego Club and that kind of thing, and you get this really cool card if your parents bring you in. You know, you go
Yes.
around to all the Carson.
Yes.
Okay.
I know that our creative learning department does have a fairly significant partnership and relationship with Ananda Campbell, who is the Carson City High School librarian, and then also some of the middle schools, and that it was certainly, I know, is in their plan to continue to try and grow those relationships. So, yeah, I think agreed that it's very important and effective. I think it was certainly effective with me.
I know,
When
me
I was
too,
that
'cause
age.
I remember when I went into the big library, my mom taking me in there, getting that first
Yeah.
card, you know?
Right.
And I wasn't in middle school, I was in elementary school. I was a
Right.
nerd, obviously, and I read a lot, but.
That's okay.
Yeah, it is, it's effective. And it's an easy, you know, again, it's an easy get, doesn't cost anything, you just go in there and talk to them for a while,
Right.
yeah.
I'd also like to see the makerspace, you know, opened up again. And I know that, you know, what's going on in the world is, it makes that challenging, but I think the makerspace has a lot of possibility. It is kind of far back in the dark part of the library. But I think that the makerspace, and also I think a library of things. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine. just this week, and he was working with my husband, and they had two electric drills, and it's like, well, wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to go out and buy a new tool every time? You could just go borrow it. I mean, it's kind of veers into rental, maybe depending on how expensive. But I know I would, when I've moved several times, and so you get rid of a bunch of stuff, and I got rid of my bundt cake pan because I wasn't using it very much. But I don't want to go buy a new bundt cake pan because I don't want to spend $15, $25. But could I come to the library and borrow one? Yeah, that'd be great. Or a springform pan, or like a
Because
cricket
you use it
thing.
once a year, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
mhm.
So that whole concept of library of things.
That came to mind during the pandemic too, which Todd and I went to the Carson Douglas ECAC Early Childhood Advisory Council meeting, and we're talking about, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? These kids are staying home, and they're little. We're talking 0 to 5, right? And it's tough. If we had a library of things that was geared toward that age range, not necessarily individuals borrowing, but these childcare centers could have been borrowing, and they do this all the time anyway, where you have to rotate your materials. With little ones, you absolutely have to rotate your materials. So if that connection could be made and perhaps strengthened. The other thing too is like some of these centers already had a bunch of stuff no one was using. There was no existing infrastructure or way for them to get it in the hands of their parents who patronize the center because they're staying home. And who's really good at loaning stuff out and getting it back if not a library, right? So even just being available as subject matter experts on how to, okay, well, here's how you're going to keep track of your stuff, and here's how you're going to get it back to your parents and back. Just sharing that knowledge might have been helpful. And we can all sit all day long and think about what we could have, would have, should have, would have been nice back then. But just in terms of resiliency as things go forward, even if it's something not as catastrophic as a pandemic, maybe it's just an area of town that floods and people have to be displaced for a short period of time and back, that you can still keep some semblance of normalcy when your child care center, when your learning materials don't also disappear because you've encountered something way out of your control. So that it was a thought.
Joy, for the record, I would
point
point out too that what Trustee Markle mentioned about the bundt cake pan, there was actually someone who made that suggestion in the survey about loaning out cake pans. So the users have expressed that desire for that. And then also the users in that survey did express having programming for kind of tied in with what Trustee Alderson just stated about 0 to 5 age kids, and engage at more opportunity for infants and small children to begin socialization, interaction with others, developing motor skills, etc. So that was also a repetitive theme in the survey results. So,
right, we love story hour. We do. And I think if you put on either end a little bit more mobile, active tactile playtime, not playtime, but sensory input, whatever it is, there's a natural draw with story hour.
and I think that the survey, like my personal thought is that it's given us a lot of opportunity to see what people really want. Now, of course, as Dr. Simon pointed out in our staff development day when we went over this, that as Trustee Lucas pointed out, these numbers are, the respondents are sometimes of a certain demographic, certain age, whatever. So we always have to take those things into consideration. But so I think, it's a balance to kind of look at what the really clear feedback was versus the demographic that's giving it and stuff like that. So
I actually do have a question on that, Dr. Simon. Can you give us kind of an overview of how you conducted the survey, how you compiled results, how the questions were crafted, that sort of thing?
Sure. Again, Fred Steinman with the University of Nevada for the record. The survey that was used this year is pretty much a carbon copy of the survey that was used in 2019. Working with Todd and Joy and other staff members, we did update and revise certain questions. We added a few additional questions, things that the library just kind of wanted to know, especially within and post-pandemic, where the library kind of is settling within the community. After we had settled on the questions themselves, we developed both an English and a Spanish version. We provided a link to both the English version and the Spanish version to the virtual editions to the library, and then the library worked with the various partners that they already engage in to get that link out. Hard copies of both the English and the Spanish version were provided to the library itself for distribution directly to patrons and then collection and receipt. We let that survey run, I think, for about a month. Once the kind of month-long period for the survey had closed, then I kind of went through the process of producing the summary that you have in front of you. We did have, when it's all said and done, I think just over double the number of survey responses for this year as opposed to 2019. So very happy to see a much broader kind of swath of the community and of current patrons, past patrons, maybe even future patrons getting their input into the process as well. One thing that I, talked about during the professional development workshop when we did our staff strategic planning work back on August 13th is really kind of a continuation of some key trends that were first identified in 2019. One being the large regional reach of the Carson City Library. So the Carson City Library is probably unique to a lot of library systems in the state, and maybe even through the Western U.S., is that you're serving a population that doesn't live just within Carson City, but individuals who live in surrounding communities and counties, even across the state line in California, who may live in those communities but work here as the state capital. So they're utilizing your services. And even despite temporary closures to the library, the challenge that patrons and members of the community and the region have had in accessing resources, we really did see no significant, or at least statistically significant, drop in the level of satisfaction that patrons had in utilizing library resources, the facility, and maybe most importantly, staff. There was a bit of a drop from like super very satisfied to just the satisfied. But I think kind of diving into kind of the comment section, the open-ended questions, I think that drop from like super duper very satisfied down to kind of just satisfied is probably a representative of kind of the stress and the anxiety that members in the community faced. You may have an individual patron who's kind of already on edge, already anxious. They come to the library and they experience just the slightest bit of frustration, and that kind of triggers everything else that they're dealing with. So no red flags in the results of the survey. And I think that continuation trend, it's safe to say that that continuation is legit, especially based upon the much larger response rate that we received this time around. And again, I know the library worked very hard with city government partners, departments and agencies, and its other partners outside the library and the city organization to get the word out to as many people as possible to get responses from that survey. So I'm I would say, personally satisfied with the results of the survey, and that it's fairly representative of what we would probably expect from the average patron if we were just kind of randomly grab someone out of the library and start asking these questions.
So, how many results did we get in Spanish?
Unfortunately, we received 0 responses in Spanish. All return surveys, both hard copy and online, were English. I did work with my counterparts at the Nevada Small Business Development Center and our dedicated Spanish-speaking small business counselor who serves the area. She was able to put the survey in the hands of different groups that deal primarily with the Spanish-speaking community here in Carson City and throughout the region. Unfortunately, again, no returned responses in Spanish. Doesn't necessarily mean that we didn't get responses from individuals with Hispanic, Latino heritage. They could have very easily just completed the survey in English, but there's no evidence to say either way.
And do we know in terms of, I heard you say we had double the respondents from previous.
Approximately.
How does that compare to overall number of card holders, active card holders? Do we know that?
So about 450 total respondents, and I don't know how many are existing total card holders.
Joy Holt for the record. I'm ballparking numbers here, but I would say it's just under 50%, or 10%, excuse me.
Of adult
Does that
users.
seem right?
Number of card holders would probably be about 20, like active card holders would probably be about 20,000.
20,000.
Oh, so I'm wrong.
About 5%.
I was thinking of active and inactive card holders, so,
Okay.
which is kind of double.
And
But
how
anyway.
many of those would be considered adult?
Adult would probably make up 75, 80%.
That much?
Thank you, Dr. Steinman. Do you guys have any more questions about that? I didn't mean to derail the whole thing.
After our brainstorming, are we going to go over, it looks like this is a draft of the 21 to 24 plan at the back.
Right.
Is that our next step?
So what you have is actually, in addition to the preliminary results of the current 2021 survey, the technical report and then kind of the polished strategic plan is the result of the strategic planning work that was done in 2019. The actual strategic plan with the core values, mission statement,
Right.
vision statement, goals and objectives. The next step in this process of the annual update and review, and believe it or not, I can actually read my writing, which is the most important thing for this process. In addition to the work that we did on August 13th, all of that work plus this work tonight, plus the results of the survey, my job over the next couple of weeks is to put together another USAID technical report, which will summarize all the work that's been done as part of this annual update and review. I'll then provide a draft of that technical report, which again will provide, a comprehensive summary of what the major issues facing the library are moving forward, some of the tweaks that were made by staff to the mission, the vision, the core values, the reprioritized goals and objectives, and a little bit of rewording for the coming year. All that will be in that draft technical report. I'll provide it to staff. The executive director, Todd, for comment. We'll refine it, tune it, and then I'll have the opportunity with the library to bring that to you and to give you just a general presentation and overview of what the results of the annual update are.
Okay.
So
Because-
hopefully we'll have that wrapped up, I'm thinking October.
Okay, because
Fingers
when I went
crossed.
through the packet and I got to page 150,
Check
I saw
out.
the summary and it went back over missions, values, and goals. And I read through that and I thought, it looks like it captured the majority of what I took away from the survey results. And so I was thinking that someone had, yes, it looked to me like a lot of the themes and big points were captured, and maybe this is the result of your work on the August 13th.
And that's an excellent observation, especially from the technical report and the strategic plan from 2019, is that
the survey that we did in 2019 drove the development of the current strategic plan. And, when you go through the results of the 2021 survey again, you're seeing a lot of those themes, continue on.
Okay, because it does say at the bottom 21 to 24, so that's why.
Yes.
Are we gonna go over?
But
so-
what I've been,
I'm sorry. I have crosstalk, which, where were you?
I was just, the one thing that I noted when I went back through there that I feel like we talked about a while ago as a board and may have fallen off the radar is I would like to keep that possibility about the embedded social worker on our radar. I
Anywhere
don't know if we
can-
just haven't gotten to it, or it's been with COVID not a thing. But I was happy to see that's still in
Yeah.
there, and I think that that is an important thing that we might want to discuss, because I think that that could help with a lot of the
Yeah, library social
areas,
work,
a lot of the
yeah.
areas that came up. I think that that
Having
could
that-
possibly tie a lot of them together and maybe further a lot of various things that we've noticed or that came out of this.
Library social work is an emerging field among social workers, as in addition to school social workers. So I think part of it too is I so appreciate you bringing that up, because it's awareness, it's how you allocate funds. I don't see any new positions coming necessarily, unless we can find a grant somewhere, but that's even that it's tenuous. So maybe it is a priority. Is it enough of a priority to eliminate another position to do?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I do see where it does tie in with some of the things that some of our purposes or some of our wishes or things that we would like to provide or help with. And I can see where that could be. I don't know the end be all end all
When I say-
solution, but it does tie in with some of those needs.
Right, and when I say eliminate position, I'm not talking about like actually firing anybody. I'm talking about as you have a vacancy that would occur naturally in any organization, to think hard about if that vacancy needs to be filled the same way or if that could be repurposed for a social work position, just in case staff was nervous. I didn't mean it that way. And Dr. Steinman, if I could ask you just a little bit more detail about, as you form the plan, and I appreciate your explanation about the survey, but I want to go maybe in a different path, and if you could tell me a little bit more about your methods or other resources, other research you did to inform the creation of this plan or the update of this plan.
So going back to 2019, when we were contracted specifically to develop the plan as it currently is, again, in addition to the survey, in addition to the collection and analysis of a lot of socio-demographic, economic, and housing data for Carson City and the surrounding kind of northwestern Nevada area, I also had the opportunity to conduct, I think, about 40 hours of one-on-one stakeholder interviews with both internal staff, but external partners as well. Including representatives from the school district, representatives, I believe, from the Chamber of Commerce, and other various groups that don't have necessarily an identical mission, but have a purpose serving the community and different parts of the community. And those 40 hours of stakeholder interviews, plus the data collection and analysis, plus the survey results, helped inform 4 separate organizational strategic planning workshops that I facilitated with staff, representative of the Friends of the Library group, and other key stakeholders. It was about 8 hours per workshop. Workshop 1 was just, what is this analysis telling us? What are the big issues? Workshop number 2 was, okay, we need to develop a draft set of core values, mission statement, vision statement, and evaluate the existing or at the time expiring strategic plan. Workshop number 3 was the development of goals and actionable items that are identified within the plan. And then workshop number 4, again, was an opportunity to just kind of holistically look at it and make revisions and tweaks as necessary. After that process was done, then the 2 technical reports were developed, published, and then brought to this board for its approval and adoption. and then the process of implementation begins. And again, as part of that contract in 2019, we agreed at the Center for Economic Development to provide up to 4 annual updates and evaluations, which is me, getting a notification on my calendar, hey, it's been a year, it's time to kind of get the band back together and kick the tires on this stuff, see where we are in terms of implementation and where we want to refocus. And that's been the process up to this point.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from our board?
I was just wondering if we were going to go over the comments that we collected from the people.
Or how do you want to do that?
I guess just look at them. I have a couple of comments on there.
What jumped out at you?
Let me tell you.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
What jumped out at me is, and again, I haven't dived into our finances, so we might not be able to spend the money on this, but a lot of people were saying that they were getting on the ebooks and there's not enough ebooks. So that might be something that we want to look at.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at me funny. It's okay.
Yep.
Agreed that we do. And we are actively working on that. We actually received from the state library, Library Services and Technology Act grant called Evolving Needs. And it was basically money that they had left over from CARES money. And we received a grant for $4,500. And as of today, ironically, we've spent it all on ebooks and audiobooks. So it is our focus.
And is it true those tend to be a little more expensive, or are they about the same? I feel like
They're way
audiobooks
more
are
expensive.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, the average audiobook is about $100 or in that ballpark. And the thing about audiobooks especially is that it didn't always used to be this way, but it's become more the trend amongst publishers for that purchase time to be limited. So you've only got the electronic version, and it's more common with audiobooks for you to only have 24 months of checkout.
So it's more like a lease than a purchase.
Right. And that really just depends on the book and the publisher. And sometimes you simply have no choice but to go that route if you want that particular material. So it's a balancing act, really, to make that choice to get that material, that it may circulate, but is it going to circulate only circulate in the first 6 months because it's the new hot dig book? Or, it's so that's something that the curation process and the collection development process of audiobooks and ebooks is, it can be tricky. But we are definitely focused on it, particularly in light of what's been happening with folks really wanting to remotely access materials and really needing to. And so, yes, we are absolutely focused on that, and we will continue to focus on that as extra monies come in. So, yeah, we've got eyes on it.
And I know that every library survey I've ever participated with, whether I was directing it or answering it, I mean, there's always a significant number of people who want more books. It's kind of like the expected response. It's a library. Obviously, we want more books. But that doesn't always translate to more books being used. And, $4,500 for Overdrive, that's going to be 75 books. And it's like, I mean, and that doesn't add up to more books very fast. And there's tons of books. It's just that people who read a lot, they don't want to read those old books.
And also the
don't
conundrum,
reread.
sorry to interrupt you,
That's okay.
Trustee Marco. The conundrum is that space issues. More books equals less space. And then, so that's another common balancing act for libraries everywhere, is finding that balance between weeding and to get more space for new books. And so sometimes the same folks who want more books also don't want us to weed any books. And so that's, the conundrum is how to find the balance there. Because, and for us, this is a particularly significant issue that was made way more profound when all of our books were coming in and we were running out of, because we have a certain amount that is always out circulating. So we are able to have that space available. But when things weren't circulating, physical materials weren't circulating as they would have during COVID, we were certainly having a tight squeeze with materials. And that's simply the limitations of our space.
I know that the library belongs to the Silver Star Consortium, so there's multiple libraries that are purchasing books, which allows a greater collection of ebooks and audiobooks. But I don't, and this might be an issue that is more geared towards publishers or maybe even the state as a library, such that it is. If there was a broader ability to borrow books from electronic books from a larger group of libraries, it might, just like interlibrary loan is great for people who are borrowing hardcover books and are willing to wait a week or more for a book to come in and come pick it up at the library. But if there was a bigger pool, so to speak, of electronic books, there might be more, people might like that better. And I don't think that's a solution that you guys can implement right now. But it is something that I think, publishers should be aware of as well. I mean, publishers are out there wanting to make a bunch of money, and they are limiting the amount of time that that libraries can have those books on their shelves, so to speak, those electronic books, without paying for them again. But, libraries have existed for a really long time by cooperating and borrowing books between libraries.
How does that work? How would that work?
Well, my knee-jerk reaction to that is that certainly that is possible. And it really, because we are part of a consortium, we could certainly participate in trying to move that forward. But ultimately, the cooperative, because it is the cooperative's platform, insofar as it's called the Silver State Library. But I do think that there's lots of potential and dare I say opportunity to cooperate with larger libraries who have more robust audiobook and ebook collections. That is something that is only so much in our control because of the consortium. But also the benefit of the consortium is that we have a strong voice that can be heard, and we can work with them to develop that. Because it's certainly possible. I mean, there are certainly consortiums out there who are cooperating with across states and whatnot. So yeah, sometimes Overdrive can be a little bit limited in that way with their how that works with. It can get complicated with billing and things like that. But I do think that Overdrive or Libby now is getting way less stringent with that piece of their offerings, because it's been getting really popular. And I would say, and this is just conjecture, that some of that's in response to the popularity of Audible and how much people really do like audiobooks, particularly. So
Well, and also there were several comments about Washoe County having a bigger collection, having more books to be able to borrow. Through their, whether it's their, pretty much through their, down their e-books, that Washoe County had more books available. I mean, and it's not to compare or anything, because I know it's different, things. But it would be nice.
Washoe County
Be-
member of the consortium? They're not. Okay.
No, they're not. But, and that's one of the things that I would personally like to see the state library take a larger role in, getting everyone in the state. I mean, just
How do
think about how you could do that with Las Vegas, Clark County, and the cooperative and Washoe County. I mean, we all belong to the same state.
How do you see that happening, though, in terms of our strategic plan, in terms of things that are actually actionable? Is it you need to see more from the board and engagement and advocacy on our end? Is it something we need to work through Todd or whomever through staff's end? How do we do that?
Frankly, I think it's all hands to the pump. I think it's all of those things. It's Todd working with his relationships with the state library and other libraries throughout the state. I think it's all my working and collaborating with my colleagues throughout the state. It's all of us working together to really push all of this forward. And all of these things that Dr. Merkel is mentioning they're happening in some places, and it really is just something that at the end of the day, it sounds so simple, and it's not, but it's collaboration. And to get to that level of collaboration just really requires that everyone, that we band together and we go and speak in front of the legislature when the time comes, and that we are dialed in on what is going on in the rest of the state in terms of what other libraries are doing. And certainly is it fair to compare us to Washoe County? I mean, certainly we would love to have that, their collection of audiobooks. We would probably love to have their budget too, quite frankly. But they do have approximately 3.5 times our population size. So, we certainly, I hear what that feedback is saying, but we also are a different, and we're not just a different demographic. We have a different population size. We have a different budget, et cetera.
I would be curious to know what would be in it for the larger counties to join the consortium. What would it benefit them?
I think only they can answer that. I think that is something that is all actively been bandied back and forth, and Dr. Merkel can also speak to this, having been the director of a library that was part of the cooperative. That is something that really the cooperative director would have to build a relationship and work with Washoe County to see what would be the benefit to Washoe County, what would be the benefit to LVCCLD. But at the same time, some of the benefit is just simply that you'd be helping other community members in your state. And libraries want to do that. They want to help each other. They want to see their entire community thrive. So there's that. And I think one of the benefits to Washoe County or even LVCCLD would be that we're sharing. I mean, we're relieving some of their costs as well as them relieving our costs. So, but it really requires active engagement and involvement of each library that's part of the consortium. So that's where we come in. That's what's, I think, within our control of how we can sort of move this forward. That's one of the pieces that's within our control.
Is the consortium only public libraries, or does that include academic?
No, it's not just public libraries. They have we have some academic libraries.
Yeah, they're like Sierra Nevada College was part of it.
It still
the-
is.
Yeah, but the other
Looking at
colleges,
Mr. Belbin back there.
yeah, the other colleges are mostly through the State Board of Higher Education. And so, yeah, there are issues.
Is
There's
WNC?
issues. What?
Is Western Nevada College?
No,
No.
they're with UNR. Or they have been.
Please, come on. Come on in.
Ron Belbin from Western Nevada College. We have currently switched out of the UNR system. We are now independent. We are working, our catalog is now through the ALMA vendor, which is Ex Libris. We were until recently it wasn't so much of a consortium as it was a collaboration where they were providing our catalog, but we were purchasing all of our own resources. We are part of the purchasing group that receives we get access to some of the databases that are provided by the state library. But I think this issue of how we work together within the state and how we share resources and how we provide service to our patrons is one that is really worth exploring because there are certainly needs that can be shared. The costs are going up, and it's a good opportunity coming out of the pandemic. I think there are areas that have been exposed for real meaningful conversations.
And it is complex, and it involves, Joyce says collaboration. It involves collaboration, absolutely. It also involves money and time. But it could be worth looking at some other states and how they handle it, because as Mr. Belbin mentioned, there's a whole separate section of higher education. And, so they're on a new system, does that connect with any other library in the state? Whereas, the university libraries are all kind of connected. The cooperative libraries are kind of connected, but you have separate entities that are all not connected, where if you could bring them together.
What would it take to do that?
Money. and a desire to do that. And, it's
Are we talking one-time money or ongoing money?
Oh, it would probably be ongoing money, some of it, but it's kind of like Nevada does not spend a lot of money on education, and libraries can kind of fall into that kind of area of education. So, education-wise, Nevada's pretty far down the list of the 50 states. In terms of libraries, what I've seen, yeah, well, there's
Similar.
yeah, it's similar. It's not terrible. I mean, you have 3 pretty much strong areas, or 4 if you include the universities. But it could all go together. But it would probably need leadership from the state library, which remains to be seen.
We have a new state librarian, right?
We do. His name is Mike Strom. He came from the Virginia State Library. His experience and emphasis is, and his background is predominantly in archives.
But he also worked in Wyoming. So
He did. But he was also an archivist
yes,
in Wyoming.
yes.
Yeah.
So he does have experience with the Western mindset.
A really,
That's true.
Really,
Yes.
really big space and not a lot of people.
Exactly. I mean, especially with Wyoming. I mean, I think that's probably the only state, actually, factually, that has that is as spread out as we are, with even less population. So he certainly has experience. And also I would note that Wyoming has, the entire state has a shared integrated library system. So then they can, that they have basically a giant consortium the entire state is involved in. So, and that is, as Dr. Markle can attest, that is certainly something that is a consistent topic of conversation within the state library system.
And is it something that we have any control over? We don't, I don't think, but I think it's something that it's a question that should be continued to be out there.
Well, it's an infrastructure conversation for me, as far as I can tell. We're talking about strategic planning, we're talking about infrastructure, and this is a cornerstone to the infrastructure that exists within our collection.
And advocacy, I think it's a big advocacy part that we need to be able to speak out about the benefits of the collaboration, the sharing of the funding, the need for more robust funding. It's possible.
And we're back to communication. So there's your audience for that specific, very, very different and specific compared to what some of our other audiences might be. You look like you're ready to say something, but I
I
can't tell.
was just going to say, I mean,
Okay.
we've covered a ton of issues, and one thing I always say in the world of strategic planning, sometimes you don't get to do everything you want to do within a 1 year or even 5 year strategic planning horizon. But some of these larger issues, maybe there are an opportunity to start moving pieces on the chessboard today within the next year to set up eventual success 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road. And certainly we've identified the communication and engagement component, collaboration, identified a ton of additional potential key strategic partners, both internal and external. And again, all of that will be included in the annual update write-up that I'll hopefully have to you by October.
I thought it was interesting that one person mentioned that the parking wasn't very good at the library.
Oh, dear.
Sometimes you have to take responses with a bit of a grain of
I
salt.
Did you have more that jumped out at you?
I hope I'm not opening a can of worms. A couple of things that jumped out at me, and I have to be honest, they jumped out at me and I went, okay, so I'm not the only one who feels this way. There was a few people that said that when they walked in it felt cold and and not really inviting. And I have to be honest, I feel that way too when you walk in. It's very open and looks sparse. I mean, people go, it's a small library. I think it's actually a big library. I just don't know how.
Concrete floors.
I just remember, again, I've been at this library for a long time, when we had the reference section and the big shelving, we had the reference librarian. I don't need. It was warm and had more wood. I mean, it was warmer. The kid and someone had even said in here that the back area feels creepy. And I got to be honest, the first time I went in the back area, because that's normally where I hang out, it is cold and dark, and it's not the most exciting place to be in. And it used to be a really open, lovely place when it was the children's section. It was very bright, and lots of colors. And
If I may add to that, part of it is because I've observed this, because it's true that it is dark back there, and it's the tall shelving is what I'm convinced of. It was much lighter when it was the juvenile and teen section, and it's because my thought is it's because those shelves were shorter, so they weren't obscuring the lighting.
And that
Yeah.
that could definitely be, but again, so you're just going, somebody who used to take their kids in there,
Right.
because I remember taking my kids in there, and now it is, and there's always a guy sitting at a computer. I don't know what he's doing, doesn't matter, but it's always like that same guy, right? It's like, wow, what's going on back here? And and I've been there when people walk in, and the first thing they kind of do is go, whoa, and it's fine. You can come back here, and cookbook section's right over here, and it's fine. But I think one of the things that we may want to look at with a hard eye is when we walk in, does it feel warm and inviting? And maybe again, and I don't mind saying this, I'm older, I'm old, I'm over 30. I remember, when the libraries were a little bit more, I'm going to say warm, and there was maybe plants on the shelving, and I don't know, that's
It's an
something.
excellent point. It was part of the last strategic plan prior to the one that we wrote. It came up in 2019. It's here in 2021. We talked about this on August 13th during the staff retreat, and certainly this is a really big ticket item. And we've been talking about space in the facility itself. One thing that's clear is, the physical space is probably coming to the end of its useful life as a structure. Again, budgets are what they are right now. The Great Recession didn't help. COVID has made it worse. But this might be a big ticket item for the library board, for the library, the Friends of the Library group, the other various stakeholders and partners to say, maybe we're approaching the rapid end of what we can do with this space in terms of making it welcoming while still providing space for books and, periodicals and resources and collections. Because that's, from an outside in perspective here, it's a theme I keep seeing in almost every single perspective that I've been able to access. And again, maybe it's not something you complete this year or within the current 5-year strategic planning horizon, but given its importance, starting this process of making this a number one priority for funding sources of either a top to bottom renovation of the existing facility, or maybe we're at that point where a truly new facility that meets these needs is on the horizon.
I agree, but I think also until then, you want to find something to do until then. So again, if that space, because of the tall shelving, it doesn't work back there, then maybe we need to switch that back out and put the kids' library back there, because that area obviously needs shorter shelving. So I think there's ways to mitigate that problem until we can come up with all that money that we're all going to find.
Well, part of it, you cannot utilize the top shelf, but the collection, the Carson City collection is pretty tight. So there's a lot of materials there. There's a lot of books. So it's difficult to leave free space. Typically you're supposed to only use like 2/3 of the space on a shelf. And when you only use 2/3 of the space on the shelf, you create more light. You allow more light. And that's not really possible. If you've gone back there and tried to get a cookbook or a computer book or something, they're very tight. And they're all the way up at the top and they're all the way at the bottom. But a lot of libraries don't use the bottom or the top.
Right.
And so that limits the light.
Maybe it's more orientation, right? Where are the shelves located? Can we just move them around? Maybe they don't need to be back there. You can still use the full height because we do need the storage space.
Right. If you
but
have high
maybe
shelves
they
against a
can
wall.
be arranged a different way.
I think we also have some constraints with the pandemic too, because hard surfaces are, able to be sterilized. And I think I've been going to this library since the 80s, and I feel like there used to be carpet at one point, but I'm not sure that I'd want to put carpet back in now. That's probably a lot of the noise issues and a lot of the cold feeling. If we add a lot of soft surfaces, can we sanitize those surfaces? A lot of people wanted seating areas, but I think we had to take out a lot of seating areas in order to be compliant. So in some ways, our hands are tied, I think, until the pandemic takes a turn. So it might be exploring other ways to make it feel warmer or softer or meet those needs. But it's trickier, I think, under current conditions.
I would not be the one to try to go and move furniture around to make it look well, but I'm sure there are people who are good at that. And that might be a more reasonable first step, like you said, without, no purchasing necessary, no running afoul of COVID protocol, but perhaps just,
Also, it might be possible to look at using like vinyl plank flooring or laminate flooring that looks like wood. And because, I mean, I must admit, I do like the concept of concrete floors. And I know that they're easy to clean and, when you have to clean up messes, it's a lot easier. But a laminate type flooring, a vinyl plank flooring, would provide that same kind of ease of cleanup, and would give a lot more warmth to the area.
How
And-
long ago did the floors get done? My guess is that was a big ticket item, and probably we're not getting the floors done again
It
anytime
was,
soon.
so if I recall this data correctly, and give or take, it was, I believe that the library so the refurbishment was in 2018, and that work began in December of 2017, and it was completed in February of 2018. And I believe, again, approximate number, I believe that the funds were about $80,000 that the city gave for capital improvement. And again, my historical knowledge of this is a bit dodgy, but I believe that like the biggest expense of that was the flooring.
I bet they were like, yeah, let's do concrete floors, and we'll have to do it for 25 years.
Right. And what was interesting is I think everyone was, I mean, they look really cool, but I think as time has worn on, and Irma could probably speak to this more than me because I'm relatively new back in the library, but what I think everyone was a little bit, I certainly was, I can speak for myself. I was surprised at how loud they were. And certainly, if you're a heavy walker like I am, I mean, you can hear me coming from a mile away because I'm all about working out. I walk on my heels. So I think people were surprised by that. Also, when we did active shooter training in 2018, the police officers were shooting blanks in the building so we could hear what that sounded like. And with that new flooring, the sound of a blank being fired or gunshot seemed very similar to a heavy book falling on the floor. So something to consider. But yes, those floors were most of the expense.
I will say, a lot of people look back on the carpet with, rose tinted glasses. They don't really remember the smells that they contained or the stains that would often form on them. So that's something to keep in mind. And then the other thing is, when you are looking at redoing the space or trying to make it warmer or what have you, I think it's important that we don't look at it just each space in isolation, but how all the spaces flow together. So while that room is now a nonfiction, it was uncomfortable for people who had to go, who brought their children back there, and lots of older adult men would walk through there to go up to the second floor. So that is something to consider.
and what were they doing at the second floor? It's the computer lab is up there?
Correct.
Does the computer lab need to be on the second floor?
That's
No.
something we could look at.
Well, and these are all conversations that certainly came up, which is really actually kind of refreshing and exciting because what a lot of what y'all are saying today is aligning with what we were also saying as a staff at our when we looked at these survey results on our staff development day. So yeah, I mean, I think we all are seeing those trends, and these are just things certainly. I mean, this is. I think Dr. Steinman will probably say this is what strap hunting is about, and looking at these things with a very mindful, watchful eye, and just really, certainly,
it's a very advantageous and sensible for us to be talking about the flooring and these things that will be future capital improvement projects, asks coming down the pike. So, yeah. But we are all on a similar page, so that's good.
Perfect. Do we have more?
I thought it was interesting that when you look on page 64 of the responses, there's, it says, please indicate your level of satisfaction concerning the Carson City's library's facilities. The library is clean, well-lit, and inviting. And so between agree and strongly disagree, you have like 66%. The next question is, the library feels outdated and the physical amenities are old and worn out. And for agree and strongly agree, you have 37% who believe it's outdated and old and worn out. So, you know, you gotta take these surveys with a grain of salt, because sometimes people don't pay any attention. And they often will just put neutral because they don't want to commit themselves.
I just don't feel strongly. Yeah, I got it. And I think that's where the board is so critical to determine the direction. We've got great information. We've got great input from our staff. And ultimately, though, staff can suggest and carry out plans, but determining those direction is a responsibility that rests with the board. So I don't want to keep us here longer than we need to be. I just want to get a sense of the room if there's anything else that you all feel you need to share, any other thoughts. And certainly I assume we can, as thoughts come to us outside of this meeting, I'm sure we can reach out.
Madam Chair, not to interrupt, but, Todd and Joy have my contact information, office number, cell number, email address, which is really easy. It's just Fred, F-R-E-D, @unr.edu. Again, Joy has that contact information. If an hour from now, a week from now, a couple days from now, something pops into your head and you go, oh, we should have shared this, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'll be taking the next several weeks to actually type up this annual update summary report. There's more than enough time for you to add comments down the road. And of course, strategic plans are not etched in stone. They're supposed to be flexible. Just because we may finish up the annual update and review in October doesn't necessarily dictate a specific course of action. Flexibility is a very important part of strategic planning. And who knows, today it's murder hornets, tomorrow it's flash floods. And that's kind of the message of the last couple of years. Be flexible in the plans that you adopt and implement.
Nothing else, we're flexible. Well, terrific, everybody. Dr. Simon, I want to thank you so much for your time and energy and effort and all the work that you're doing. Also, thank you to our staff who are present. Irma and Joy, thank you for coming and all of your great input. I will close this agenda item and we'll move on to board members' announcements and requests for information, if any. Hearing none, I'll move on. I want to also thank everybody who came and provided comments about our plan and participated. Your feedback is so critical. Thank you for coming. And with that, I want to give you the last words. So again, we'll open a public comment period. Any members of the public who wish to address the library board may come forward and speak on any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the library board. If you have any comment, please share that now. Come on down.
Again, Ron Belbin from Western Nevada College. I'm interested to hear some of the comments that were made about the atmosphere, the layout of the furniture, shelving, and so on. So I'd like to extend to you an invitation to come to the library up at the college. We recently went through a major renovation of our building. One of the things we did was we removed the circulation desk so that we have a small a desk that is open to people as they come into the space. I'm not for a moment suggesting that it's a model that you would necessarily want to adopt wholesale, but it is an alternative that you could come up and see just how we work and how it's going. So if you're welcome to just come up at any time. If you'd like me to give you a tour, I would be more than happy to do so. So I extend that invitation to you all. Thank you.
It's awesome. If you guys haven't been there, go.
That's very beautiful. Any other public comments? Folks on the phone? Sir, come on down.
Right here.
Yeah, here, come on.
There are no callers on the line at this time.
All right. Gentleman in the room.
Hi, my name is Garrett Popinga. I'm with Weinberg Machining. I'm the owner of the company. I'm here on a special request of the library board to consider showcasing technology. And my company has been in business now for 44 years. And what we have observed over the last few decades is a major decline in skilled individuals looking for jobs. And we're not able to attract young people into the industry. Matter of fact, there's about 5 million open job offerings in the United States that are unfilled. So within the industry, we're all suffering because we cannot attract young people into manufacturing. So over the years, I've involved myself in career development and career opportunities for young people. I was on many boards, on many advisory boards at the community college level and so on. I have several employees that have been instructors in advanced machine programming. The programs were cut because there were not enough students in them. As a matter of fact, out of the graduating class in Carson City, and I was talking to a college professor about this as to how many people of the graduating class is actually going to college. And he said only 30. And that's a fact. So what happens to the other 70%? I think our school system has failed those young people. We do not teach career development or career opportunities in junior high and high school. And when we do not showcase, when everything goes towards you're going to college, no matter what, and there's no room within the curriculum to showcase career opportunities, whether you go to college or not, it should be done. Because at some point, you will leave school and you will look for a job. And so that's not happening. So what are we to do? And I see a lot of sad cases out there. You know, believe me, I employ a lot of people. And, you know, it's sad to see that somehow they're not, they have no guidance towards a good paying job because it has never been showcased to them. My company is on the cutting edge of technology. We employ people that have a high degree of technical skills. Matter of fact, my company makes parts for the Starship program for mission to Mars. We do parts for SpaceX, like I said, Tesla, aerospace, medical industry, and so on. So we need a lot of people that have specific skills. Now, since we're not teaching those skills, I have to find people that are teachable. And since I'm not allowed to talk to the high school classrooms as to what job opportunities there might be for them, I think the last institution that's left that could do something for those kids is the library. We need to showcase technology. We need to showcase what's available to our kids. Our kids are glued to the visible things, you know, how things are made. They're watching, I mean, they're seeing things on their smart devices and so on. But we don't do anything within the school system or in the library. Now, from what I understand, you currently have virtual reality goggles, which is great. It's a teaching tool. It draws attention. The kids are fascinated by this kind of thing. You have 3D printing machines, among other things, but they're in a back room somewhere in the library. In my opinion, that needs to come up front. And what you need to do, and this is just my opinion, you need to draw the kids in. You need to showcase things that are of interest to them. You don't put it in the back room, you put it up front. And you're basically an institution of resources and learning. And that's what we can do. If we get kids interested, they will learn on their own. I've seen this happen many, many times. Once you get a kid's interest, you don't need to coerce them into things. They will do it all on their own. And so that's the hope for the future. For me, of course, it is too late, because by the time those kids come around, I'm gone. I'm too old. But if we don't do something now, then when? And we need to do something entirely different than what we have done in the past. We need to make it sexy for the kids. When they come into the library, they need to be, wow, what's happening here? Okay? Other than that, I don't have another solution for those young folks. We need to do something drastic and quick. Otherwise, too late. Other countries, they're way ahead of us, way ahead of us. I've seen libraries that are on the cutting edge of everything. I mean, it's incredible. 10 years ago, Carson City had an opportunity to build a library, and it was voted down. I'd like to see something like that done again. And I think we can do this with the current library. You have enough space, in my opinion. I've seen the space that's available. Bring the technology up front, have TV screens showcasing technology. In 3D printing, you can have, on YouTube, there's many examples of 3D printing houses, okay? Or prosthesis, 3D printing, that sort of thing. We can showcase local manufacturers. They would have maybe a minute and a half of what they do, and you can put that on the loop to where other companies can also participate. You can ask them for the privilege of doing so, contribute to the library, and I'm sure they would. I know most of the local manufacturers. I'm friends with all of them. And they think alike. And they just don't come out here and talk to you. So I guess I'm it. But I guess you get the gist of what I'm asking. And consider it, I'm willing to donate whatever it takes myself to bring a little glitz and glamour to the library. So there's no shortage of money, believe me. There's no shortage of money. If you're thinking about how much is this going to cost, we can have a proof of concept right here across the street. You have the space, you have the technology, you have the support of local manufacturers. So please consider that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Papinga. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.